Yes, your audio is working. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Hi there, John. Good morning to you.
Hello, Andrew. Good morning.
Heinrich, good to see you. Lloyd, hello to you as well.
Good evening to everybody from South Africa.
While we have a few moments, I just want to let you know that John T. Moss and I have been associated now for at least 7 years, maybe 8. But we are, in fact, connected together here. We connected here in the United States, and he actually has visited me here in Los Angeles, which is, as you know, how the Tongva people. But John was the first person I brought into a relationship where we could connect together the aims and efforts of the indigenous people here in the United States with those of the African-American descent. So he is, in fact, the co-founder and leader of the group that is collaborating with Herschel Daniels to bring together the stakeholders for the permanent forum on for people of indigenous descent with the permanent forum for people of African descent. So this is a monumental invitation for John to join us here. I just want to let you know he has my full support, and I just ask you to do everything we can to support his efforts. But more so, he brings valuable resources as a financial literacy expert, and his expertise has already been demonstrated internationally. So I want to think about ways we can embed financial literacy into everything that we do on our own behalf from an organization standpoint, but also from a standpoint of providing our children with guidance from an early beginning. But I'll be quiet now. I'm actually streaming this to other places, but I just wanted to let you know that John has my full support.
Thank you, Andrew, for that. And I don't know if people, it's kind of small, but the picture that I have on my screen in the far upper right-hand side, that's you and I, Andrew. Remember that day when they were opening up in the Crenshaw district?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. And met with Mayor Garcetti another time, and etc. So thank you.
Lloyd, I see you here, but I don't hear you. Are you able to unmute yourself? Lloyd, can you hear us? Okay.
Good morning, everybody. I'm just concentrating on something to do at the moment because I had forgotten to update my calendar, as I always every week tell everybody what are the upcoming events. And then I realized as I was logging into Zoom that I did not do that this week. So I'm just opening, I just spent the last minute opening my calendar and say, oh, what are the events coming up?
Well,
so I can get that information for everybody.
All right, well, thank you so much. And you know, I think John has a limited time availability, so I'm not sure how you want to work that out, but
yeah.
At any rate, we're here, Lloyd, so we're all good.
Well, we usually start at the 5-minute mark, and it is just reaching the 5-minute mark now.
Well, 10 minutes is actually when we usually start. 10 minutes after, but I was just giving you a heads up.
Yeah, no, I'm here. It's just, I just wanted to go through to find out what are the events coming up.
And Lloyd, I only have a hard stop at 1:30 my time. So
okay.
you said that would be plenty of time. So
I think it should be fine.
Yeah, I guess I'm the only one on live camera. Hello.
So I will be opening my camera in a second as well when we are ready to go forward. Because these are also recorded events. So I will.
Well done for yesterday, by the way. Oh, good afternoon, good morning to everyone.
I recognize that voice. That is Juliet.
Hello.
Yes, it's Juliet from South Africa.
Oh, Julie,
Yes, well done, Professor Lloyd, for
Okay.
yesterday.
Yeah, I actually did include an additional slide for that.
Okay.
Okay, so I am here just to let you know. Hello, everybody. I'm also, I think, ready to go. If we want to start a little earlier or wait a couple more minutes.
well, I'll start now, but Juliet, Stephanie, you're both co-hosts, and also if you can give us hands for letting people in, I'm still streaming. So I'm going to begin recording and we can go.
Okay.
Recording is in progress.
Okay,
All right.
great.
Thank you very much. So as always, though, I do begin these events by acknowledging those who came before us on this land. So I do say a land acknowledgement. So we begin today by acknowledging that we walk upon the traditional territories of Indigenous people, and we recognize their history, spirituality, culture, and stewardship of the land. We're grateful to all Indigenous groups for their commitment to protect the land and its resources, and we are committed to reconciliation, partnership, and enhanced understanding. We acknowledge the land we are meeting here in the Greater Toronto Area is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinabeg, the Wendat, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples. And it is now home to many diverse peoples. We would also like to acknowledge the land we are on here is at the meeting place of two treaties, the lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and those of the First Nations of the Williams Treaty. We thank them and other Indigenous peoples for sharing this land with us. We also acknowledge and recognize all of the world's Indigenous peoples as stewards of Mother Earth. So as I go forward, I want to say some of the upcoming events. Nothing too special, but maybe interesting to some of our members. Saturday, 30th of April is International Jazz Day. It is a UNESCO day. International Jazz Day is declared or was declared by the UN Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, in 2011 to highlight jazz and its diplomatic role of uniting people in all corners of the globe. It is celebrated annually on April 30th. Then on May 3rd, there are 2 days. That's following Tuesday. May 3rd is actually World Tuna Day. And it's written as with so many countries around the world relying on tuna for both its nutritional and economic value. World Tuna Day, first observed on May 2nd, 2017, is an effort to stress the importance of a stable and healthy tuna population. In practice, the events aims to spread information about the possible impact of drastically declining tuna stocks and to raise awareness of the importance of sustainably managed tuna stocks. So this is an interesting event, World Tuna Day. Same day as World Tuna Day, again, Tuesday, 3rd of May, is actually World Press Freedom Day as well. With World Press Freedom Day established in 1993 by the UN General Assembly, the day marks the anniversary of the Declaration of Windhoek, a statement of press freedom principles put together by African journalists in 1991 to promote an independent and pluralistic African press. This day is observed annually on May 3rd. I wanted to note as well, again, for the past few weeks, some people do consider this to be Earth Month. And if you look up April is Earth Month, you do come across some articles that say this is a call to action for sustainable change. April 4th was the 52nd anniversary of Earth Month. The links I'm sharing give information about Earth Month. The link to a Canadian website called Let's Talk Science also states that They are committed to preparing youth in Canada for future careers and citizenship demands in a rapidly changing world. As well, a link I will share for an organization in the USA. The Solutions Project says they celebrate Earth Month as Earth Day 365. In their description, they note that for decades, Black, Indigenous, immigrant, and other communities of color, as well as poor communities, have been at the losing end of decision after decision that puts polluting industries at their doorsteps. Instead of sitting on the sidelines, they are building power and enacting some of the most cost-effective and creative solutions to address the consequences of the climate crisis. We are working toward these solutions every day, not just on Earth Day. It's time we acknowledge, support, and begin to implement these ideas on a larger scale. Let's get busy building the future we want. Again, in the chat, I do put that link. So I am going to go to my presentation now, which I need to share my screen. Just a second.
If you're ready to share your screen, I can stop sharing, Lloyd. Let me know when.
No, it does actually, because you have given me control, stop your share. Okay.
Thanks for putting those in the chat, the links. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm. As always, I do start my presentation by giving recognition to our supporters and sponsors, in particular Andrew Networks, which I now call the Door Opening Network for those in the Global Unity Network, UnityNet, and our weekly Thursday Zoom calls, where we are committed to take these weekly Zoom calls out through to December 29th, 2023. So Andrew Networks is also rebroadcasting any production-ready episodes on the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board Goodwill Ambassador AHIABGA.org domain, being redirected to the UCI-TV site. You'll notice the logo indicates that this is 21 to 23 ITU Summit event. We do plan to continue delivering these events until the end of 2023. That is in alignment with the UN Global Compact 2021 to 23 vision and strategy. Again, I put in some relevant links into the chat each time. You do see logos on this page for organizations such as the Maui Aloha Project, the 5 Points Youth Foundation, the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors, Future Lift Foundation, Global Peace Let's Talk, the American International Education Federation, the EDFU Foundation, the Conservancy Trust, the Saget Foundation, the LA Global Foundation, as well as our own logos for the Tree of Peace and Reconciliation, the Greater Unity Network, the Indigenous Unity Flag, the Unity 4K Clubs, the HEPTA Matrix Partnership, template of the UnityNet International, and a number of other ones. Again, I in the chat links to many of these organizations that we are working with in partnership. But first, I do want to acknowledge Andrew Networks as donating our hosting and promotional support services. Andrew Networks being a brand and domain name owned by our RXTC Export Trading Company, comprising the various social media channels, including TRN TV, Universal Citizens Media Networks, Conversations with Andrew Williams Jr., and many more. Andrew Networks is not only our primary sponsor supporting the promotional ecosystem for this UnityNet initiative, this Indigenous Global Unity Summit, which will continue again through December 2023. Andrew's also what I call our yes, yes, yes partner, helping to open doors so that members of the network are able to discover their inner selves and passions, where Andrew Networks is working with the people who occupy the various nodes of the Global Unity Network to come together with the people of the network acting like a net to support the dreams of the Global Unity Network, so we can come together and leverage these passions transform visions of a better future for themselves and their communities into reality, realities that make sense for themselves and their communities, however they might define what is a better future for them collectively as they seek to work together in partnership and leave no one behind. So again, into the chat, I put links to Andrew Networks. So Andrew also founded the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors, Advocates, and Activists in September 2019, with this focus on globalizing the Sustainable Development Goals during this decade of action and delivery on the SDGs 2020 to 2030. Andrew later appointed me as the representative for Canada, La Francophonie, and the Commonwealth of Nations countries, originally published on January 1st, 2020. I was later appointed as a representative for Turtle Island in early 2021. Again, in the chat is the link to the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board Ambassadors. I do like to say before I get too far, I am Lloyd Helferty, the Chief Ecosystem Director, Program Development Director, and a Sustainable Society Consultant for Energym University, which is headquartered in Manhattan, New York. I am located, however, in the city of Markham in the Don River watershed, German Mills Creek subwatershed, which drains into Lake Ontario, the lowest of the last of the North American Great Lakes in the Greater Toronto area in Southern Ontario, Canada. Energym University, a private 501(c) nonprofit company in New York, member of the UN Global Compact, a UN academic impact member and partner. Energym U being a virtual university created to help empower global populations to reestablish a sustainable balance with their local environments. Energym does this by designing and implementing projects to support a strong and diversified local economy while integrating core sustainable technologies and infrastructure into the local communities in the areas of renewable energy, high density food growth solutions, along with systems for sustainably managing local waste streams and protecting local water resources. So Energym is supported by over 375 companies whose products and technologies we employ. Energym also supports local education and training in the construction, deployment, and maintenance of all of the various integrated solutions for achieving these closed loop systems, which in turn support self-sufficient, sustainable communities. Again, my contact information is in the chat. So I'm also the co-founder and administrator of the We Energize Global Cooperation Turtle Island International civil society organization that is seeking to undertake life value peace education in the context of life learning gardens. And in the chat, you will see, whoops, sorry, wrong link or bad link to the group there. Again. But the link you see on the screen there is in the chat. So I was, as I mentioned, also designated as a Goodwill Ambassador for the 5 Points Youth Foundation in Los Angeles, with that portfolio that covers Canada, La Francophonie, the Commonwealth of Nations, and Turtle Island communities. As the ambassador, seeking to empower our communities to engage with royal, Indigenous, and tribal leadership, as well as helping local communities establish what we call interfaith neighborhood academic and business collaboratives, or INABCs, that come together to pledge to support all of the local humanitarian entrepreneurs who are globalizing the global goals, starting with the Sustainable Development Goals, while always also seeking ways to leave no one behind. In the chat are some connections to the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors. So I am co-founder of the Global Unity Business Group, which originally came together as a coalition of small businesses in order to establish, manage, and grow what we call a global unity network, now referred mostly as UnityNet. The result of the original Global Unity Business Group, which I had been describing as a humanitarian enterprise and global sustainable and regenerative development corporation supporting and promoting the local delivery of open source, regenerative, climate smart infrastructure set up as life learning gardens, along with the hybrid virtual learning platform we call the VCN, or the Interchange for Peace, is now being rebranded as UnityNet International, in alignment with our first continental network, UnityNet Africa and Diaspora. Well, the original Global Unity Business Group was created in order to formalize the ad hoc International Advisory Board process of localization of the global goals, starting with the SDGs. It is being done by the establishment of this Global Unity Network, UnityNet, which includes the Unity Gardens, the Unity Learning, and other dedicated UnityNet nodes and chapters, which are all important components of what we call a network of networks. So the latest way that I describe who we are is as a network of people and organizations supporting the ad hoc International Advisory Board process of localization of the global goals, currently the SDGs, and the global transition to a regenerative economy that leaves no one behind. Essentially, we're creating an empowerment network for all of our members, including the female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs who are helping to implement the local regenerative climate smart solutions that are required to achieve a regenerative economy that leaves no one behind. It is important to note the existing social media, WhatsApp, Facebook, LinkedIn groups we're using right now are used as a placeholder as we build the global network, prepare to launch, where we'll eventually get all of the people, companies, and nodes of the network onto this Interchange for Peace VCN, where they'll be able to gain access to the many tools and services that are available there, where they can much more easily collaborate in order to locally implement all of the globally coordinated real-world events, projects, enterprises, and infrastructure. So again, I am putting some of the links to our existing social media, including the professional networks and the other public networks. So the Global Unity Network, now UnityNet, created to showcase global cooperation for the implementation of the local regenerative solutions for achieving the global goals, starting with those 17 SDGs. Our goal is to help uplift the traditionally marginalized communities that are mostly being left behind because the existing economic paradigm is very much focused on making money for those who are already wealthy by extracting resources through the exploitation, usually over-exploitation of people and the natural world, and therefore the majority of people on Earth are being ignored by our existing highly competitive economy. So our focus is thus on the billions of people who exist or subsist on the economic sidelines, where we intend to start our work by helping local communities deliver the various regenerative, local, climate-smart enterprise solutions that people and communities in some of the least developed countries, communities, and local economies require in order to thrive. So as an entry point, we are focused in particular on those communities that are the most food insecure. Again, I've put in some additional links to our local unity network. So the UnityNet is promoting the delivery of a suite of practical solutions for achieving the global goals, starting with the Sustainable Development Goals. During this period until 2030, we are focused on using the tools of humanitarian entrepreneurship, focusing on female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs and enterprises, and using this hybrid virtual and hands-on education and training and learning programs, platforms, and curricula, with a primary focus on delivery of the various humanitarian entrepreneurship skills training in practical settings or practicum learning, along with leveraging the various open source regenerative climate smart infrastructure solutions to remotely assist local INAB collaborative teams to establish the local open source Unity Garden classrooms in all of the local communities around the world. So the Unity Garden classrooms are set up in collaboration with existing schools in local communities and can be used for the local and remote and virtual delivery of the practicum learning programs for all of those FFEG members, so they can learn how to grow, process, cook, market, sell, and trade the various types of regenerative climate smart food and related nutritional and medicinal and other types of locally produced regenerative products, both within their own local communities, as well as regionally, nationally, continentally, and even internationally, in order to produce income and therefore greater prosperity for themselves and for the people in their own local communities, for all people on all continents, with the intention, again, of leaving no one behind. I'd like to put in chat at this point a link to our UnityNet Smart Cities network as well. So we also promote through the virtual social marketing all of the members of our network. We use all the various practical social media network and trading tools, including those of the modern fourth industrial revolution, combining the wisdom of the crowds together with the deep indigenous knowledge of both our ancestors and the living indigenous people of this earth in order to learn from each other about how to share the abundance of this planet in order to create productive, regenerative, climate smart landscapes wherever we may live in and around each and all of our local communities. Our intention is also to help restore nature and biodiversity, ensure abundance for all, and ultimately restore the human connection to Mother Earth as proper stewards of our one and only beautiful planet. Again, we have a biodiversity network as well. So the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board process of localization of global goals is intended to help everyone in each of their own local communities to establish local teams of humanitarian entrepreneurs, as well as local community support networks, the INABCs that will provide support and ensure the success of the local cooperative humanitarian enterprises, starting with the Unity Gardens. These will be done and established in each local community across our global network, most likely starting in Africa, but also here in North America and in Asia as well. This process of establishing the local INABCs is done by taking part in what we call the Abraham Project, Tree of Peace and Reconciliation tree planting ceremonies that we plan to do on World Environment Day, June 5th, where some communities will also establish twin trees of peace and reconciliation and twin unity gardens, and will be done through the CPTP program process of twinning the local community unity garden humanitarian enterprises, and also twinning the local community INAB collaboratives. So what we are building here is a global network of local INAB collaboratives, where all of the members of each local INAB will be interconnected and watching over and talking to each other at the global level, and where each local INAB will have a diverse set of members from 7 different sectors of every community: public, private, civil society, academic, interfaith, finance, and orange economy, or the creative sector. And we'll also be watching, promoting, and helping each other and supporting the local entrepreneurs in each local community who will be empowered by all of the members of the global network, and where all activities are also intended to be transparent to all members of the global network, including all members of the local INAB collaboratives, who will also be accountable to and for the success of the local collaborative Unity Garden humanitarian enterprises. So this means that if the local female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs who are living in that local community fail to be successful as they build and run their local collaborative or cooperative community Unity Garden humanitarian enterprise, their business, provided they're fully dedicated to making it successful for all the members of the community, and especially for those who are most marginalized in each of their own local communities, it will not be entirely on their own shoulders alone, again, barring some unforeseen circumstances that the insurance industry and lawyers like to call acts of God, but rather such failure could also at least partially be blamed on the local community INAB collaborative members for not having lived up to their obligations to support and empower the local community humanitarian entrepreneurs who are building, operating, maintaining, and delivering all of the various community programs, events, interventions, goods, and services that will be delivered in the context of their own local community Unity Garden humanitarian enterprise. So I always suggest as well that every community Unity Garden humanitarian enterprise should also be established as a cooperative enterprise or business, where the idea is to set up the local community business as a co-op so that the burden of running the business does not fall entirely on the shoulders of any single entrepreneur. Although different business models can be tried in order to determine what business models might actually work best. Again, in the chat, I put some information about this concept of enterprises and co-ops. So the INAB collaboratives are established at the local level, where we are leveraging this process of community engagement, initially through the planting of the trees of peace and reconciliation, planting ceremonies, followed by ongoing community engagement and interaction through regularly scheduled events throughout the year, including coordinated bubble fun festivals, which will be done in collaboration with the local INAB collaborative members, the CTP program for twinning the community activities such as community organized tree planting, local regenerative community infrastructure development projects and events, the Tea Diplomacy Initiative, as I described, the Team Dream Boards Initiative, done in collaboration with the C4 group members, identification of and engagement with local talent, artists and creative people in the Orange economy for the purpose of promoting and showcasing their talent, especially as they promote the globalization of the global goals and the regenerative economy during any of the periodic sunlight spectacle or other edutainment events. So we do support any other programs or activities that may be developed in the context of either the climate smart gardens or forests, or the climate smart kitchens delivered by Kindred Kitchens, or the Wheel of Life farms delivered by an organization in Vietnam called ESRLA or EPWT, the Spark Learning Centers or Climate Smart Learning Centers delivered by PodNet, and as well, as many have seen before, the local INAB collaboratives are now being expanded to try to include more critical partners, potentially now including Bridges of Hope organization from Kenya, which will be focused on training of the FFHEs in the various regenerative and climate smart businesses and infrastructure solutions, and possibly also being an international, the Black International Managers or Black Emergency Managers Association, which would help bring together first responders, such as police, firefighters, paramedics, from the local community in order to help prepare the local entrepreneurs and enterprises, potentially position their businesses as hubs of taking action during emergencies or significant incidents that may happen in the community. I have also included a placeholder for a virtual cultural exchange office of UnityNet Africa and Diaspora, established for the purpose of mutually supporting each of our own local communities, including the FFHE and the rest of the local INAB collaborative members, wherever it is that each of us live. So again, I put in the chat some links to our template organization, UnityNet VPA. I want to mention again, we are doing these Tea Diplomacy Initiative events. The first one we did during the Week of Solidarity with the people struggling against racism and racial discrimination, which was March 21st to 27th. In particular, I had suggested at that time begin on Monday, March 21st, the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, which also happened to be World Poetry Day and the International Day of Forests. So this did open us up to the possibility to do this virtual tea diplomacy event and have conversations related to methods and processes of enabling and implementing solidarity with the people struggling against racism and racial discrimination, as well as discussing some of the local poets and poetry that have influenced local cultures in each respective community, wherever participants in these virtual discussions might live. We also discussed the importance of establishing productive forests as biodiverse 3D polyculture food forests established as unity forests, unity gardens in all of our local communities, managed in partnership with local Indigenous people and all levels of government in every local community and country as an essential part of a process of practical reconciliation with all of the Indigenous peoples of the world, one country, one community, and one watershed at a time. I will now play for you the poem that was played during the first Tea Diplomacy event. It's about 2.5 minutes and was read by a poet called Jack Black God, who is from a squatter camp or VVC called Dislip, north of Johannesburg in South Africa. Oops.
We are people of our own color. 7 seas and 1 big ocean. It doesn't matter how big, small, dark, light, Christian or not you are. We all come from the same origins. Origins that when we trace footprints lead us to the central heart of Africa. Because Africa should unite and nothing will bite. Instead, we will forever have peaceful nights. Africa uniting wouldn't be bad, instead it will never hurt. Trees! Allow me to be your garden at least, so that I could plant these poetical seed into your cultivated mind with harvested thoughts of negativities. We are enslaved by our own memories. Right now my broken, beaten, bone skeleton wants to escape this flesh. My soul is rejecting this temple hospitality of You see, we were never told about the secret ingredients they used to cook this system. This system was cooked with a four-sized traditional pot, but we were never invited into the inns of financial taste. All you did, black child, was to feast on that racism that was served to you on a silver platter, so that mahinya, 7 colors, the shininess of it could blindfold you. Your I have fought has made deals for dessert. But what about the main meal, black child? We are still enslaved by our own memories. See, once upon a time there was I reciting poems with meaningless senses and unengineered sentence language construction. Therapy of my words wounded so many innocent souls, I'm lost in translation. Tongue clicks, Ubuntu transplant, guilty to innocent endless transformations. I'm so confused in my lost thoughts. Perhaps I'm losing it, isn't it? Yes, I've been here and they've all been there, distant relatives. 300 Spartans, the rise of my ancestors to you, godly amen. The last breathless word you would inhale. We are still enslaved by our own memories, yet we are 7 seas and 1 big ocean.
So I will as well put in the chat some relevant links to many of these events and organizations and other information that I had just mentioned as well. So we have now completed the first virtual Tea Diplomacy Initiative event that took place on Monday, March 21st. During that Tea Diplomacy event, we asked leaders and other high-level decision makers to sit down virtually and have a cup of tea with some of the UnityNet members at the grassroots who are living in and doing work in the various marginalized communities around the world. The conversations that we asked our participants to discuss during these moderated virtual casual conversations between sustainable development decision makers, professionals, and our grassroots members who are doing some of the on-the-ground work in the various local communities in the Global Unity Network were related to these 3 themes that I mentioned and that were shown on the previous slide. The event was co-hosted by the Global Unity Network, UnityNet International, which is building our network on behalf of the AHIABGA International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors, the Global Forum for Sustainable Rural Development, and Global Peace Let's Talk, along with the AHIABGA International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors and Activists. So at this point, I do also want to play the music of a lady by the name of Nuvia M and a song called Fulan Lisio. As this is playing, I will also put the translated lyrics of this song into the chat. The song is about 4.5 minutes long and is our new theme song for the Global Diplomacy, Tea Diplomacy Initiative. We will play it as well as that poem that we just played at every Tea Diplomacy Initiative event. So again, in the chat are the lyrics for the song. So I wanted to thank everybody for taking this time to listen. We're hoping that eventually that song will have its own music video so we can actually watch this song being sung to us. But for now, I also see that Prophet Cox has asked if I could share a link to the poem that was read earlier. Unfortunately, I don't have that available. However, if you contact me afterward, we can get that to you. What I wanted to do, though, is to mention all of the partners that we did have take part in our first City Diplomacy Initiative event, including Andrew Networks, the World Humanitarian Organization for Peace and Equity, WOPE, Saga Foundation, Gemma Productions, We Energize Global Cooperation Turtle Island, Drada and Markham, the Climate Change Solutions Education and Training Hub here where I live, the Indigenous Global Unity Network, Carbon Shot Earth, the Sustainable Marketplace for Climate Solutions, the Unity Women and Feminist Network, Tots and Kids South Africa, Jofoa Uganda, the National Federation of Women Farmers and Appropriate Technology, Asia in Nepal, TriLife Foundation in Malawi, the Soweto CSI Council in South Africa, Gemma Skaters Youth Development Program, Village Synergy in Uganda, the Global Unity Business Group Humanitarian Enterprise and Global Sustainable and Regenerative Development Corporation, now UnityNet International, together with the organizations that support and promote this ITU Summit event, including the 5 Points Youth Foundation, EdFu Foundation, Future Lift Foundation, and Cycle of Success. Again, I will put a number of links into the chat, so people do have those links again to the organizations. I want to make sure this time we have links for everybody to connect to these organizations so they are able to access them. People can save the chat again by pressing the 3 dots at the bottom and say save chat. So I want to also mention that we are planning to do at least 2 more tea diplomacy events this year, including a second one on May 21st, International Tea Day. That day is also World Day for Cultural Diversity for Dialogue and Development, which celebrates not only the richness of the world's cultures, but also the essential role of intercultural dialogue for achieving peace and sustainable development. Thus, our next Tea Diplomacy Initiative event, we will partner with UnityNet Culture and Diversity members who are supporting the UnityNet international plans to establish unique and culturally relevant local Unity Garden infrastructure projects that reflect the local cultures of each country, city, community, or eco-village. The third Tea Diplomacy event will be on Saturday, June 18th, which is Sustainable Gastronomy Day, where we will potentially also partner with the Plant-Based Climate Smart Food Network, the South Markham Food Security Network, and the Virtual Urban Food and Farming Network, or the Urban Farming Network. Again, in the chat, I will put in some information about International Tea Day, along with some information about the UnityNet Culture and Diversity Network of UnityNet International, as well as information about Sustainable Gastronomy Day and the World Food, or sorry, the Virtual Urban Food and Farming Network that we have as part of the Global Unity Network, as well as vital information about the World Day for Cultural Diversity for Dialogue and Development, which is, as described, an occasion to promote culture and highlight the significance of its diversity as an agent of inclusion and positive change. It represents an opportunity to celebrate culture's manifold forms, from the tangible and intangible to creative industries, to the diversity of cultural expressions, and to reflect on how these contribute to dialogue, mutual understanding, and the social, environmental, and economic vectors of sustainable development. An additional page here, the second Tea Diplomacy event is now live, and people can register to attend this event. We're also looking to develop more partnerships so that we can have a greater impact. So if you want to promote your local civil society organization, NGO, or humanitarian enterprise, please feel free to contact me so that the Global Unity Network, the UnityNet, can also promote the work that you are doing to localize the global goals in your own local community. And I am putting a link in the chat to the second Ad Hoc International Advisory Board UnityNet International Tea Diplomacy Initiative. I want to mention the events again that we will be doing throughout the year. The collaborative events we want to do this year related to the activities of the Global Unity 4K Clubs Network and the Unity Gardens Network, Eco Village Network, and Biodiversity Network include this first globally coordinated Abraham project for the Tree of Peace and Reconciliation Showcase for global cooperation delivered locally in multiple local communities by the members of the UnityNet on World Environment Day, Sunday, June 5th, in a little over a month from now, and which will allow us to begin establishing a global network of local INAB collaboratives, these interfaith neighborhood academic and business collaboratives that will lead the way at the local level everywhere in the world to undertaking the various globally coordinated events that we plan to do during the rest of the year. So the chat includes some links to the UnityNet African Diaspora Open Forum discussion group, as well as UnityNet Sierra Leone and Uganda, which are important as well for this network. So we followed that launch event by a Bubble Fun Festival event, globally coordinated again, aligned to allow youth and families to have fun while they learn about the various properties of bubbles and how the use of bubbles will potentially allow humanity to more easily adapt, perhaps even thrive in a warming and changing global climate, especially in those areas of the world where the impacts of global warming climate change will be felt the most severely, including here in Canada, especially in the north and in mountainous areas, as well as in places like sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia. Some possible dates for the globally coordinated Community Bubble Fun Festivals include August 9th, the International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples, which is also the International Day of Solidarity with the Struggle of Women in South Africa and Namibia, or National Women's Day, along with August 12th, International Youth Day, August 19th, World Humanitarian Day, which potentially opens it up to having a global or a local Bubble Fun Festival on any date between August 9th and August 19th, which is actually an 11-day window. So again, I put in some links into the chat that are relevant to that conversation. I want to mention as well the Ubuntu Summit, some other key events that take place. Start on October 4th, Global Cooperation Day, through to World Food Day, October 16th, including the third Ubuntu, the Summit virtual event on October 4th. This is actually our second one, but this is the third event in our main series. This day is also the feast day of St. Francis of Assisi and Blessing of the Animals Day, which are both celebrated by the Catholic Church or Catholic faith communities. Again, I believe link to our past summit we did in 2021. We also want to do what we call a Climate Smart Youth Forum. This fourth event, globally coordinated again, designed to allow youth and families from around the world to learn about and discuss the various regenerative climate smart agriculture and food growing solutions that support achieving SDG 2, zero hunger, and local circular regenerative economies that leave no one behind, along with learning more about the Climate Smart Food Program and all the various components of the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board process of globalization of the global goals and the smart virtual infrastructure, the Unity Gardens and the Interchange for Peace that allow local community INAB collaboratives to gain access to all the learning programs, the information, the education, the training, the related support programs, including financial support systems that we've been promoting through the Global Unity Network that will in turn allow local community members and families to implement these local regenerative climate smart humanitarian infrastructure and enterprise solutions in the context of their own local neighborhoods and communities wherever they might live. Where the primary host for the Global Climate Smart Youth Forum Week event will be Yeli International in Nigeria, who's also working in partnership with UnityNet Nigeria, along with UnityNet Africa and Diaspora, and many of the rest of the members of the Global Unity Network, as they may wish to contribute. Yeli International is divided into two arms, one being the Youth Education Initiative and the other being a leadership initiative. Yeli International is managed by a gentleman by the name of Dr. Amadou Monday Amadou from UnityNet Nigeria. Again, I put into the chat some links to relevant groups that we have to discuss these events. I want to mention as well the optional event this year. We're still in the process of establishing the INAB collaboratives and local teams, but we would like to do a globally coordinated community tree planting event designed to establish 3D polyculture food forests in local communities around the world, done in all the local communities where any local UnityNet INAB collaborative has been established, where the members of the local community partnership wish to establish the Unity Forest Unity Gardens designed for delivering the Global Unity learning programs, such as Tukitani EV Women Empowerment Network and the Global Unity 4K Club humanitarian entrepreneurship learning programs for educating young people, their families, and other community members about the various ways of achieving food and nutrition security to achieve zero hunger, SDG 2 at the local level, while also implementing so many of the other global goals, such as climate action, biodiversity action, gender equality action, clean water action, clean energy action, peace actions, poverty actions through their local community enterprises that aim to leave no one behind. So the last globally coordinated community Unity Forest, Unity Garden tree planting event could potentially be done during the proposed Climate Smart Youth Forum Week, which will likely also include a hybrid and in-person virtual conference event. So the Global Unity 4K Clubs CPP program and other UnityNet Nigeria group is shown in the chat. So I wanted to mention as well, the Unity Gardens of the UnityNet do encourage what we call co-learning and intercultural collaboration, what is called two-eyed seeing. Unity Gardens are places where children are taught that no one being is greater than the next, that we are part and parcel of the whole, that we are equal, that each one of us has a responsibility to the balance of the system and an understanding of all, that all of the world's species and all of our bio and eco kin have contributions to make. I want to put into the chat as well, this idea of two-eyed seeing, or etuaptmumk, guiding principle for intercultural collaboration, which you can see at the website in the chat to read more about that. A new slide for today. I also wanted to mention the UnityNet International Honey Project proposal for the Russley Poverty Alleviation pilot projects that are managed by the Russley Institute in collaboration with the Global Unity Network and the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board. The Unity Honey Project is designed to demonstrate the production of certified climate smart honey produced from wildflowers that are grown on restored landscapes such as former mine sites or other industrial or currently degraded lands in order to produce abundance and revenue from what was once wasteland. So the Unity Honey Project is a bee honey harvesting project intended to support the Science for Peace CSF program food certification system and the demonstration of what we call PEGI payments, paid to the producers of certified products that are produced by female and feminist humanitarian entrepreneurs, especially in support of and in partnership with local Indigenous communities. So the Unity Honey project is designed as something that could potentially be universally applied in a number of different jurisdictions, no matter what country or continent or local community. The project ties into the Abraham Project process of integrating the CTP program for twinning or thrinning our local communities into the ad hoc International Advisory Board localization process that starts with the planting of the trees of peace and reconciliation and the undertaking of local community ceremonies that help to bring together all of the 7 local partners that will establish the local INAB collaboratives in each local community, who will from that moment forward be dedicated to empowering the local FFHEs, who will work closely together with the members of the INAB collaboratives. Again, I put in the link to the Unity Honey Project discussion group, which you can see the description there, as a climate smart honey project designed to demonstrate production of certified climate smart honey produced from wildflowers grown on restored landscapes, such as former mine sites or other industrial integrated lands. Again, supporting the Science for Peace CSF program, food certification system, and the demonstration of the PAGI payments paid to the producers of the certified products that are produced by the FFHE. Also, before we sign off, I wanted to invite everybody to share with everyone today a message of our education system from a gentleman by the name of Radhanath Swami. I wanted to play a video that is about 5 minutes long, contains many important messages about things like compassion, kindness, integrity, inner beauty, happiness, character, values, leadership, success, value, love, hope, and actually understanding of the true meaning of success. So I will play that video now.
What is happening to our system of education? It is said 50 years ago, some of the major problems in schools included sticking chewing gum under tables, talking in class, and missing deadlines. Today, our schools face gun and knife crime, bullying, and dangerous levels of stress, drug abuse, depression, and suicide. To effectively address the serious challenges that our children face, we need to consider not only the problems with individual students, but the very system of education that they are subjected to. Academic intelligence may make a child successful in the world, but compassion will make them useful. When we teach values alongside academics, we will find that children will be much happier, more successful, and will develop into great leaders that will change the future of our world. The word education is derived from the Latin word educare, which means to lead out or to bring out from within. Education is actually about bringing out the unique individual potential of every child, teaching them how to approach the hurdles, shortcomings, and setbacks of life, while empowering them to be vehicles of love and hope for the world. It is said, if you lose your wealth, you lose nothing. If you lose your health, you lose something. But if you lose your character, you lose everything. Without stressing these truths, the opposite will be understood by default. That is, if you lose your character, you lose nothing. If you lose your health, you lose something. If you lose your wealth, you lose everything. It should be a top priority of our education system to ensure that our children get this right. Imagine an education system where children are taught that the only time we should look down on someone is if we can help them up. Imagine a system where children are taught to judge beauty by what is within people's heart, not by their physical appearance. Imagine a system where character is given as much importance as competence, where children are taught that helping 1 billion people is even more valuable than being a billionaire, where as well as learning to raise their standard of living, they are also taught to increase their standard of giving, where children are taught to measure their success by how happy and fulfilled they are, and not how many letters they have after their names. An education system where developing intelligence goes hand in hand with developing compassion. Imagine if, as well as learning the history of our world, they are given the skills to change the future of it. Imagine if, as well as learning to navigate the world, they learn how to navigate their own minds. This is not an imagination. It is possible if we genuinely begin to value kindness over competence, character over success, and integrity above money, and in this way change the system in which our children grow and learn.
So I wanted to mention as well, Dr. Amadou Monday Amadou reminded us recently that the process of change is like revival, and together we can indeed make the world a better place. A positive change begins with you and I, and everyone can start something small and still be able to create the kind of change the world needs, if each one helps one. As the world goes round, it can be made free from social problems. So we in the Global Unity Network through UnityNet International are promoting a humanitarian entrepreneurship and a future regenerative economy, which encompasses the concept of collaborative entrepreneurship, a collaborative economy, and collaborative business. Cooperatives and such types of businesses are part of that. The empowerment networks that we're building in all of our local communities through the ceremonies of the planting the trees of peace and reconciliation are intended to support and empower such types of local community cooperative enterprises and the FFHE who wish to establish and operate them. We believe that a collaborative regenerative economy can achieve far more positive outcomes for far more people far faster than a purely competitive economy as it exists today. Of course, to keep prices down, there needs to be some competition within sectors, especially for those who are providing the same or similar goods and services in the same community. But we encourage what we call co-opetition rather than pure competition, which has a winner takes all mentality. Rather, we want our members to support each other's mutual success so that no one is left behind. In other words, we call Ubuntu for business. Again, I'm going to put in the chat a link to the final slide we have. Sorry, my computer's a little bit slow, which connects us to our global objectives. These are the good, simple global UnityNet values that we want to be continuously promoted alongside the humanitarian entrepreneurship. In other words, life, value, peace, education. So that ends the opening for today. And I will now pass it on for John Moss to provide his presentation. Andrew, did you want to stop and restart the recording?
Good idea, Lloyd. Thank you for the reminder. Recording is in progress. John Moss, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you open screen share? It's showing it's disabled right now for me, please.
Yes.
So I'll start while you're doing that. So hello, everybody. And first, I'd like to thank Creator for bringing us all together. And Andrew, of course, for your introductions. And I know for quite some time, Lloyd as well, you both obviously have been working to help me meet with everyone and share some information. And timing wise, I'm glad we're able to do so today. So I appreciate it. And I recognize many of you on the call, so thanks. And jokingly, Lloyd, I have to say, I thought Herschel Daniels put a lot of links in the chats as we go along. you and he are right there. That's great. That's good to do, so everyone can have that. So my information's in the chat if anyone needs to reach me for follow-up. I welcome that. And let's see. Okay. So can everybody see that clearly?
Yes, thank you.
Is it too big or?
We can read everything there. We're good, John. Go.
Okay. So, all right. So let me go ahead and start with this. And I appreciate everybody taking a notebook or making some notes and follow up with me in emails, because while I'm going through this due to time, I'm not going to be reading chats that much. Okay. So, and maybe the host can let me know if someone raises their hand and really has a question. So my name's John Moss. I'm the grandson of the picture here of my grandfather is Michael Martin Chief Silvermoon. His true native Indian Caddo name is White Moon. And we're from the Hasinai band, which is the chief clan of the Caddo Indian Nation, who traditionally, and it's still noted in treaties, going back to as well the Treaty of 1835, that our lands originally were all the way from Louisiana up into a small portion in Canada, Lloyd. So, so with all of that, the middle part of the United States is where our lands traditionally were before genocide and many other things took place. But the Treaty of 1835, my great-great-grandfather, Chief Oates, signed, which is allowed what is known in the United States, the 5 civilized tribes, to have a place to go through and be in Oklahoma and Texas, so that they weren't completely genocide, even though that is still going on with generational trauma. So that is what we are, similar to a lot of what you shared, Lloyd. We've been working for a holistic approach, as is culturally taught, that we're able to maintain and have a balance of life. And with that is self-sustainability, so we're not reliant on others. And in the United States, we are the only race in the United States that is required to register and be recognized only through the Bureau of Indian Affairs, through the Secretary of Interior, for reservations, which really were traditional, war camps. So, sorry, all these images come flying through my head, but that is a department of the War Department, and reservations were put there to control and change our people and our culture. We weren't allowed to speak our own tongue, taking away our language, dances, spirit, trying to take all these things and our spirituality, yet we are all still here. So my main background is banking and finance through the years. I've done many other things as well, all around the world. And I'm the only real estate mortgage trainer in the entire United States with the letter of recommendation on ethics and non-predatory lending. During all this time, we were doing community outreach with different sponsors. And when I say the letter of recommendation from the top banks in the United States, no one ever has gotten that recognition other than myself in the United States ever, on ethics and non-predatory lending. And that was also during and after the mortgage debacle crash. So that led to me and my board and people I was working with already with community outreach, where they said, well, you need to form a nonprofit and be able to still do that. So that is what developed with Cash Community Development, which stands for CADO, which is my tribe, Assets, Services, Help, Community Development. And we're a 501c. Our main focus is financial literacy, business and economic development, predominantly with what is known now as Native American, First Nations, Indigenous people, including Hispanic, Alaskan Native, Oceanics, so forth, and African American. And around that, our other main focus is the military. Native American people have almost a 12 to 15% higher enlistment per capita into the military in the United States since the 1800s. So that is what that is. And then later, Native American Trade Information Office is because we were approached through the World Development Banks, multilateral banks, to be part of the U.S. Department Chamber of Commerce, U.S. Commerce Department, I should say, because there's different programs and funding. One is sole source funding. Many of you may have heard of that. And a lot of people don't know what the IMF fund is, multilateral banks, etc. But that's what part of all that is. Matter of fact, today on Bloomberg, they were talking about the IMF is reporting that we are about to hit the 50-year low of financial challenges in the world, and we better be preparing. So that's part of, I'm sure, why all of us are working towards this, right, Lloyd? So I see your head shake, so it's good. and with that, we've been working closely with PDI, Friends of the African Union, NCRC, military, and other networks, okay? So these procedures, and again, we have non-disclosure, non-compete agreements because sovereign nations are their own nations and sovereignty, supposedly, under the US. So they don't want everyone knowing who and where they're getting funding from and projects in some cases, so we respect that. This is our board of directors, and our board of directors, everybody here has a Native American affiliation. And then Our board of advisors are people that are respected to have like-minded mindsets, like Herschel Daniels, Maggie Dodd White Eagle is on our board of advisors as well, who has worked heavily in Canada and continues to do so, who we do a lot of work via the networks there. And we encourage all of you to work with us on that, including with the lumber and fisheries and green self-sustainable farming products, okay? So you can read about all those. And then over on the far right side, you can see my handsome young son, Jason, who's 24. He heads up our youth programs because that's a huge part of us working towards everything holistically, because our youth are our future. And I do want to point out Randy Edmonds here is our senior board member. He's also my cousin. He's Kiowa Caddo, and he founded the San Diego Indian Human Resource Center. My mother, Pauline Janelle Martin Moss, helped him as well in finding the Native American Indian Center, which is in Fountain Valley, California, one in Los Angeles and one in the Inland Empire. Both have been around now over 50 years. Many of you in Canada area or region may recognize, sadly, the name of Roy Samsel, who was on our board of directors early in, who's now transitioned, as well as David Lester, or Beaver, who's transitioned. He was the founder of what are some of the largest Native American, and both of them have worked in it with Randy, organizations like RES and Native American Indian Congress, so forth. They were the beginning points, and David found certified energy resource tribes, because many people go to tribes and try and present green, sustainable projects that functionally are not even feasible, but they're hoping that they can get funding before Native people find out, or their contractors. And that's still going on today. So we're working to help provide proper information. This is more information about our nonprofit. Due to time, I recommend all of you go to our website and you can see more of this, but you can see the focus is, language arts are an integral part, right? As well as supportive services, reservation and non-reservation. There's about 576 federally recognized tribes, but there's also almost 3,000 or so unrecognized US tribes and in the United States. And that is not right, even that we have to go through that process. But just a good example, our sister tribe, the Caddo out of Louisiana, who in Louisiana, you have the Caddo Parish, which is part of our original lands, okay? They are not recognized federally, yet that's where a lot of our people had their longest walk, the Death March, up through to Oklahoma, where now our reservation, if you will, is in Binger, Oklahoma, which is about an hour south of where I'm at in Lawton, Oklahoma, next to the Fort Sill military base, as well as other tribes. So like the Comanche, Kiowa, Delaware, etc. So these are all statistics that we're working to change, and they're documented, and they are worse. But in a nutshell, sadly, no race in the United States has more statistically proven issues or challenges than Native American people. We are a third world nation within the United States, and that is part of why it's harder for us to get some of the sustainability that other nations around the world are able to get, because they have more of a true sovereign nation, if you will. So there are certain things that we have to show as Native people to the government to be signed off and approved as that. And here's another example of deaths, higher percentage, alcohol, drug abuse. The highest rate of suicide and addictions in the United States is between US military, and it always has been as well, Native American people. And won't have time to go into all that right now. We do have a grant on our page. We have donation site with many of the different projects we're working towards. One of them is suicide prevention and addictions. Sadly, my 20-year-old son committed suicide in Huntington Beach. He was handicapped, and I've been fighting the courts for custody. But as an example, my ex-wife didn't even know a handicapped boy that works full-time at Taco Bell and going to college was in his room dead for 2 days. She didn't even know until my younger son broke the door open and found him. So we've got to prevent all of this proactively, not reactively. This is an example of part of our goal. I'm putting on here with partners a free financial literacy to over 750 people and families on housing and finances and credit and insurance and et cetera. And with that, when they go outside, they're able to meet with professionals that are all vetted. And my big thing is we need ongoing funding and support to do more of these events. But just as if you went through Gamblers Anonymous or addictions or Alcoholic Anonymous, what you have ongoing coaching and ongoing meetings. Yet in the financial world and housing, that doesn't happen. There's not the ongoing coaching and everything that's needed. That's part of our goal, is to get enough sponsors to do that. Here's some statistics on challenges in Native America, United States, and this also includes our brothers and sisters in First Nations in Canada and other areas that 1 in 5 homes lack plumbing, right? And less than 52% are connected to public sewers. You can even look at Diane Sawyer's event on Dateline, where she went to the Navajo Nation, and they recently did another story on it with COVID. But the reality is there's people a few miles, or mile in some cases, from Flagstaff and other resort communities where they don't even have running water. They can't wake up in the morning, flush a toilet, get a pot of coffee going, do their dishes with water. They have to collect the water every few days and bring it back, just as many of the third world nations around the world are forced to do, as Andrew and I always talk about. So these are some more statistics. Again, these things are on our website regarding housing and the need for housing, because it brings, again, other issues of despair, alcoholism, tuberculosis, diabetes. We have really high diabetes issues as well, and health. I'm diabetic as well. So we work, and with my background in housing, you can see as an example on my Facebook page or website, I have a letter of recommendation from the Dene people, which is Navajo. The true name is Dene. And they're the largest nation, as well as the largest landowner of a recognized nation in the modern world. And they were having the risk of losing their HUD financing for housing. So our organization and networks came in, helped prevent that, and now they gave us a letter of recommendation that every tribe, every nation should be meeting with us and utilize our services so that their people are better able to self-support and be sustainable and have use of homes, okay? There is also a program, just so everyone knows, similar to the VA loan, where people use their DD-214 and military status to qualify for a VA loan in Native America or Indigenous Oceanic, Alaskan natives, you use your tribal registration card, and that program is the HUD 184 loan program, and there are others, but that's just one example. And one of our sponsors, bank, which is the Chickasaw National Bank, the largest native-owned, largest HUD 184 lender in all of Oklahoma, is one of our sponsors. So we help get people that want to know more to them. So again, on our website, there's all kinds of resource information that's free, and I welcome you guys to go there. And like Lloyd and everybody, we're always looking for more sponsors, donations to be part of what we do. So here's the two avenues. We have our Native American trade information, which is larger projects, which I'll show you in a moment. And Lloyd, if I get close on time, or Andrew, let me know. I'm just going as quick as I can.
So you have time. It's your convenience. We're on your
Okay.
time, John.
All right, thank you. So we provide financial funding and opportunities through our networks, ideally. So we normally go to a nation, people's small business, large business. Again, we're open to meet with everyone we can. And ideally, they make some kind of a donation or a nonprofit so we can keep doing these kinds of things, or sponsorship. But in doing so, what we do is we sign a non-disclosure, non-compete. So that, as an example, a lot, especially with tribes, a lot of tribes hire people that have been or are part of other nations or non-natives. And then with that, there's certain US funds or world funds that people go after. And what sadly you don't want to have, just like in any business, is, oh, I heard about a project where we can get funding for farming or water rights or whatever. And this is what we're doing. You guys should apply for it. And then everybody starts competing for the same thing, but the project of who hired them to work for them and help them get it, sometimes those things happen, as we know, in any political arena. Is that a fair statement, everyone? Nod your head so I could see. Lloyd, yes? Yes, fair statement? Yes? Okay. So when we do find out what are their goals, short, medium, long term, then ideally they share with us, and then we help bring solutions. So we're about bringing solutions to them through our networks, which could be like Project Development International process, or public-private partnerships, IMF funds, sole source funding. There's a lot of those things. And in that, some of you on this call are somewhat networked with us right now, but we're looking to do more. And then we work towards grants, fundraisers, donations, and other, in-kind trade. Then more of the cash community development side is more of our education workshop opportunities using the seminar format below, because sadly, a lot of people we reach, they're like, well, that's a great idea. We need to do that. Let's do it. And then they go, but how do I make money? Well, because of a lot of the guidelines and things, there are certain things like in housing and real estate and so forth, that things are considered a kickback. Before some of these new laws that have made it, if you notice, in my opinion, a lot of these new laws, people are less educated about finance and business because it's harder for community NGOs and so forth to help support, because it's harder to get sponsorship or even supports. So they can even get in trouble as far as like providing licorice in containers at an event just so people have something to smile while they're listening. That can be considered a kickback. So all these things. One of the title reps I know, he took people to a $50 lunch and was fined $300,000. So again, all these things they're supposed to be protectors, and there are some good, but as we all know, sometimes the pendulum swings to the far side when they try and correct. And in my opinion, I mean, you didn't used to be able to drive along the 405, the 5308, et cetera, in California and see family after family after family in tent camps and everything else. It has become horrific. And a lot of that is we aren't doing enough with ongoing financial literacy coaching and holistic approach. And part of that obviously is, you know, putting songs, culture, and some fun and time with our youth. So Native American Trade Information is approved liaison with all these institutions. And again, this is just one of the access points or some of the access points that we utilize. But again, more of this is on our website. And then what does that mean? Well, what it means to everybody, here's a great example. Wonderful nation people in Pendleton, Oregon. This is in Pendleton, Oregon area. This is the Umatilla tribe. And part of what my passion and background has always been is helping to set up call centers, data centers, because it is a location where people in the community can come together, get very well paid jobs, have their benefits, and you can even do housing nearby in the community. So like community housing, that now people are able to work and be in the same area. And my thing has always been use it as a training format that those that have normal issues in life, my wife is now pregnant. My mom sadly was diagnosed with cancer, and my wife wants to go help her out, whatever. They can work from home. But imagine if we had more of these facilities prior to COVID, how many more would be available? So this, you guys can see this going on my mouse, I hope. But the beautiful picture here is Kaios Technologies, which is a call center data center with many areas in there. Look how nice these and roomy these call center spaces are. And to the far right, you'll see this empty room where they have the capability, and they have been expanding to do more. And just as an example, they just received contracts for $90 million ongoing to this community in Pendleton, Oregon. And part of the big challenge that, like many nations face when you're doing this, is you still have to have the proper demographics of people living in the area, being trained, working there. And then of course, there's going to be some turnover to a point. So how do you keep and maintain your seats? But again, with technology, you can have people remotely working from other areas, even in nearby communities, because they are in more of a rural, beautiful area. And I know these pictures are small, but as an example, and we have networks that have helped build and do all of this, from the surveying, the funding, etc., for their gas stations, their economic diversity plan, where they have all these are business buildings, administrations, administration building, education fund areas, etc. And then around the call center, as you can see on the far right side, there are a whole business park area where the ground has already been prepared so that you can have a turnkey solution. You can come in with a building project and all your cabling's done, modern technology, etc., your water, your sewage, right there. And now you're on the advantages of Native America. Now, the other advantage to everybody when you work with the Native American nation, you will have, just so everyone knows, there are protections for everyone, non-Native and so forth, and waivers that make sure you always have legal information. But along with that, that means that there are programs for workforce training for people to come in that are Native American, go to your project and work within your company. And within 90 days, you're able to decide, as an example, some of this may vary on guidelines, but ideally is they're working with you for 90 days and their paycheck is picked up by others. And let's say before the 90 days is up, you decide, Cheryl is certainly wonderful, but we need to move her to another division or find something else. But she's not going to work for this program that we've been working and training, and we've seen her for almost 90 days. So we need to not bring her on full time. But what does that mean overall? Your company was able to test somebody before in many markets, you have to pick up their unemployment and everything else should they be released. Is that a fair statement to everybody? Can someone shake their head, raise it? Yes, okay, good. So the other is it brings third world development tax benefits because why? You're a sovereign nation. So there are a lot of US government projects, military projects. I think there's a need for military funding right now, development quickly. I would say yes. Well, around all that, when they come to the US, they get tax benefits and similar to what I've just spoke to. But around, and so we help become the relationship network for that and the facilitator as our nonprofit, then, and our business partners. And then around that is, as an example, a lot of those projects that are taking place are tied to colleges, credits for students, et cetera, et cetera. So all that is working in. So as an example, I've recently been asked to become a board member of a facility with Haskell Indian University, which is in Kansas, which is like the Harvard of Indian nations. I'm also the president or chamber president for the World Conference of Mayors and Historical Black Towns and Settlements with the Honorable Johnny Ford, and many people on this call are also members. But I'm of the chairman for the Indigenous people because we, which I'll get to, we introduced the Indigenous Peoples Plan at the United Nations. And a lot of this is all prior. Again, these projects go back. I've been working in Indian country since 1981, which on our website, you can see letters of recommendation from mayors and Indian councils and et cetera. So, because again, I'm really carrying on a life legacy. This here is a good example of a lot of projects that are in Indian country, meaning Indian lands, that are defunct business properties or things that were beginning, funding didn't work all the way through, or changes in the environment, whatever it might be. This is a good example of here in Oklahoma, the Delaware Indian Nation owns this whole facility outright. And within this, there's several other areas that I could show you, but are like this room here is a sanitized room. So for high level technology, that is the feeder. And all this was going to be used for hydroponics growth, proven from this gentleman here from Taiwan relationships. That is a doctor, Dr. Mao. And with that, I made these relations all over the US, including the banks where he's bringing us. He was an engineer for Raytheon, and he was the one that developed, as a plane starts to land, it reads the ground level so you don't crash into the ground. He was the one that developed all that. Okay, brilliant man. So here's an example. I introduced him to the Comanche Nation, And we met with their board, their council, and again, under Indian Seas, they shared their goals. To my right is my honored dear friend and board member, Bernard Carrara. Bernard Carrara is former Comanche chairman. And there's a point where if you don't follow all the guidelines, like any grant or funding, you can lose or have your assets frozen. Well, that happened to the Comanche Nation. He became chairman and got it all fixed and corrected, as he's helped other nations do as well, and through networks that we're tied into via him and others. So now the Comanche Nation is doing extremely well. They own 5 casinos and they have many other projects that I'm out here helping and developing. Then I speak at and have spoken for a couple decades at different events. This is one at the Disneyland Hotel. Typically these type of events, there's like 575 nations, representatives, I should say, of nations. And this includes from our First Nations, our Oceanic, so forth, because everybody's looking for ways to help and expand our indigenous projects in all areas. And this is Native Nation events. This to the right here is Justin O'Connor. He is a full-blooded Irishman, but the heart of gold in working with Native America and indigenous people. And I've seen him do more than many of the full-bloods through his positive actions opposed to some others. So again, to me, it's all about, and imagine that I'm part Irish, Welsh, and Caddo Indian. I am on the Caddo official Indian roll, but my point is, I was raised, as many of you, go judge people, or people are judged by their actions of spirit, not the color of their skin, etc. So this is an award I received for at the event in front of everyone from LA Board of Supervisors for my ongoing work with the military and communities since 1981. And again, that's on our website. This is an example of the room. And there's other, like you, as all of you know that have attended any events like this, there are rooms that have other people presenting. This was our panel on housing. So you can see it was very well attended. When I spoke to around the world development projects with my background in call centers, data centers, I was told by my elders and others that when I come to present projects within Indian country, there's going to be some that support it, and then there's others that are going to try and tear you down. So they suggested that I really come and prove it on quantifiable facts, not just that I have the credentials of a degree or whatever it might be to make that happen. I do not, by the way. My degree is from the University of Hard Knocks. So since I was 17, my mother was in a car accident, and 3 days later she went blind, legally blind. And being that my mom was raised us 3 boys on her own, I'm the middle of 3. I took the role on, which my elders told me as a youth I would end up having to do someday, which, you know, when you're that age, you're like, yeah, sure. Well, it happened. So I supported my mom and 2 brothers through college ever since then. My older brother is an Indian court judge, well recognized in all that arena for all of the Native American tribes. And he's a business attorney out of Austin, Texas, with his own law firm. My younger brother was in financial planning, etc., in the footsteps of my father, James Edward Moss, who was in the Hall of Fame for IDS, or now what is a Ameriprise, financial planning and understanding finances. So this room here is part of why I was proving this. I went to the island of St. Lucia, And this is one of the 278 people that I held in a training session. I had 3 classes this size every day, and training on all of the need of taking calls, um, any challenges that people would have, how to build relationships, overcome objections, etc. And this is, again, in the island of St. Lucia, is an outsourced call center. And what that means is we did things like Body by Jake, Suzanne Summers, Thigh Master, vitamins, Bibles, etc. So we would be subcontracted, and then we'd take a group of people and train them to take calls for that particular client. So this was 20, and it's still there running really good, 24/7. But as an example, I was offered to stay there, and they offered me citizenship because they are still under English rule. And they said, you provided your training and your people have provided more employment for one business in the island of St. Lucia other than slavery. So I was glad that we were able to help erase that horrible scenario. But this is all stuff that can be done in and around the world with everyone. And I've done this in India, Pakistan, the Caribbean, networked and did some work with Africa, etc. So that is that. Below that is, again, the 750 people. This is just a larger picture of financial literacy. But again, you can see there's many age groups, parents, kids, elders, looking at different types of understanding about insurance and why it's important, and reverse mortgage, and just all of the financial tools of how in this world do we better support ourselves and our families. And then here is when in 2016 we went to the United Nations, May 20th, and we presented at the United Nations. And this is Jay Winter Nightwolf here. Okay, he's Native American. He has a radio show. Here's Herschel Daniels, Queen Mother Blakely, and Jay, etc. in the picture. And you can see our official cash community in the room and everything. So again, we could document it. But Jay did the first, Jay Winter Nightwolf, who also heads up the Native American Black Congress for Native Indian, Black Native American Indian Congress, who represents how there's a lot of mixed blood of African American, which is in Canada. It's all the way through the US, where, like, you've heard of the freemen, slaves, etc. All of these things, that's part of his organization. And we did, for the first time in US history, a live radio show from the floor of the United Nations, sharing our voice on the needs from Canada all through the US and all the indigenous people. So, and then this relates to the picture I showed earlier of us meeting with Mayor Garcetti. This is again one of the awards. This is the official letter of recognition from the Board of Supervisors of Los Angeles and the mayors. And any of you that have ever worked with any of these US institutions, to get an official letter of recommendation is not an easy task. Then moving forward, there's many events around this that I've been involved with, but one of them with the World Conference of Mayors and Black Historical Towns and Settlements. This is Johnny Ford here, and this is behind the microphone, but is Reverend Al Sampson. And then Queen Mother Blakely, of course, who I probably should have mentioned first. But the reality is we spoke at Black Wall Street in Tulsa, and they had an event that I was honored to be a part of, participate in. And Queen Mother Blakely is also recognized by the Hopi Nation as Grandmother Grease Wood Woman, where she was given that name by a spiritual elder of the Hopi. Otherwise, names that are given to people, unless they can be quantifiably proven by people, then it's not truly that name. So I know the people that know the Hopi spiritual leader that gave her the name, so I recognize it. And she didn't even know I knew that till I called her grandmother, and she started crying. And I said, I felt your spirit, and that's what I looked into. And she goes, yes, how'd you know I've worked with the nations? And so then she told me the story of her name, and I said, that all makes sense, because they told me they recognize you. So, and then we spoke at the United Nations in April 21st, and I did put in the information in the chat. I really hope everyone goes to and this is the newspaper article about it, but I really hope you go to our website and you can actually download 162 pages of exciting reading of the breakout of with Herschel Daniels being the conductor of that, Friends of the African Union Black Folks Plan, and the Indigenous Peoples Plan. And we presented all that in writing and did a live event with the people of Samoa, Indigenous people from Samoa, and other nations. And again, they have this ongoing through the, and they just had it, which we just were at again, United Nations Indigenous Peoples Forum. And it is a voice that allows us to keep in the ears of people, if you will. This is actually our website front page. And this is when you go there, you'll see the download of the UN event and the plan, which includes obviously funding from like NCRC as an example, the relationship with NCRC with already signed agreements. That amount alone to go to Indigenous people is $88 billion. And that is in process right now. Okay. This is something I recommend every family do. It's a download financial survey, something we do with my background of helping people. And I recommend every family, every person do this and pass it to everybody. It's so that families sit down at what I call the coffee table or kitchen table talk, and you discuss your finances. And there's nothing there that we ask you that you are sharing any numbers, socials, credit cards, checking, nothing like that. However, you do need to get a better understanding of money in, money out, how and where can we save money, because then that helps us through our resources and our sponsors to help get you in front of someone through triage. So when they send that back to us, if they request, we're able to say, well, you're obviously having a main issue with taxes. You can't have a checking account. You're getting liens and levy with your work and the kind of business you do. And if you don't clear that up, how are you supposed to get on your feet properly? So that's the first area we need to work with. So again, we can help with that. But this is part of my disgust, I'll say, with churches, etc., that only give a box of food, clothes, blankets, which is all needed. But who is doing the financial survey? Why are you in this position? How can we help you get out of it? And what is the ongoing coaching and training? That is the missing piece to the world problem, people, in my opinion. And again, being in banking at the highest level for 32 plus years, that's what I've seen thousands and thousands of families, not just here, but all over the world go through. Okay. So again, like they say, it starts from home, right? So that's that. And then I want to point out this reading solutions tab for those with children that are looking to read. It's similar to, this is by the Lumbee tribe. It's free, downloadable, some really nice books on like, African American people, history, Hispanic, uh, Native America, etc. Not in great detail, but it's free and it helps the young kids keep reading. And then from there, it is designed to stimulate them into a software program that they can continue to grow and develop. And we're getting close to the end, I'm sorry to say. But this is ongoing projects as an example. This is at that time the only Native American VA veteran approved nonprofit, and they're still up and strong, 24/7 call center. If you're a vet and you need help, suicide prevention, food, clothing, financial literacy, all that, you contact this organization and they will help best they can. Okay. And they are out of Los Angeles. Andrew and I have talked about them before. And there's some other obviously great service in LA. I will say we're approved with the Military Collaborative. And I thought I knew a lot about the issues of the vets until I attended my first meeting there. And I literally had to walk out of the room crying. It is so sad. Sorry, what's going on with our vets? It just breaks my heart. My mother used to take us to the VA area down by UCLA, and we'd go there and we'd see this beautiful areas. Now, when you go there, the grass areas near the properties are homeless people, vets, living in their car, nowhere to go, no food, and along with that come restroom issues, etc. And America is not doing what they need to take care of them. They're rah, sign up, but then when you get back, in too many ways, they're forgetting about them. So anyway, we're working to be a liaison there. And again, of course, with the Native America. This is our sponsorship page. We offer different types of sponsorships that allow us to go to some of the events that you saw earlier. And we encourage anybody that's able to in any way, and that includes in some cases trade out, to be a sponsor. And many of these are hot links, and you can go to that location, like the Chickasha Bank up here, right? That's the one I spoke of for the HUD 184. When you're looking at how, I don't have two nickels to rub together. How do I start and build my credit? Well, eCredible is who we recommend, and it's free. Yes, the word is free. And until you need that extra support, then it's there. But they have some of the people I've worked with all kinds of free financial literacy books, information. Just as our website, we have here you can get a book on financial literacy for free, and again, our help and support. I'm going to end real quick here, Lloyd. Sorry. So again, the World Conference of Mayors, and then for all of you farmers and everyone else interested in climate, I was also flown to New Mexico and part of and spoke at the National Farmer and Ranchers Association, 3-day event, great people, a lot of things in process there out of Washington, D.C. And I'm going in May 9th through the 13th up to Alaska. And I've been invited there to be part on a panel with the Alaskan Native Corporations Association. There's over 1,000 of them up there and closely tied to Canada. So I and others that I recommended and stuff will be up there. Again, sponsorship helps with all that and donations. We also, again, obviously work with housing. These are pictures of some Native American houses, and this issue is still going on where many of them, again, no running water, buildings collapsing on them, not to mention the issues with asbestos and mold, et cetera, that affect the kids. And right now, every winter is an example. Many of them with gas prices and heating, they die and they have nowhere else to go. And that's the challenge. I do believe in other services are helpful, but again, we tie in the financial analysis to try and help people. Here's me doing my best with me being out of shape now to unload water and food. And then this is some of the food distribution to families and communities. Over here to the right, he's blocked in the picture, but this is my son, Jonathan, who sadly transitioned. But we were here providing the government cell phones to families. And as an example, one of my great memories of Jonathan was we had a sergeant in the military that had been involved for years. He and his 5 kids with his wife came up to us and they all started crying because the wife and the father had phones. And he said, you know, we've never had a cell phone. We've never been able to afford it. Now I can keep better track of my kids and jobs and work. And when he left, Jonathan was like, Dad, did you hear that? They've never had a phone. He's a sergeant in the military. Why can't the VA help him? Why? And I said, exactly, we've got to change that. I was a keynote speaker as well as an example, Indigenous Peoples Day here in Lawton, Oklahoma, and on the web, and of course with the World Conference of Mayors. This is one of the most money strong organizations in Indian country. This is NIGA, Native American Indian Gaming Association. And this is one of the events where I brought IMF funds, World Development Funds to the table with Douglas, Dr. Mao, and she's a doctor as well. And of course, myself. I'm the good looking one. So these things we work towards, and in conclusion, I again keep asking on all these slides, how you or your company support, how can we help bring solutions of green energy and business development and structure, call centers, this is the Umatilla, et cetera, to bring business. And with that, my information's in the website, but again, these are our components, and we do have networks for service and procurement. And again, part of what we do is help. If you don't know what a Nessus code is, I recommend every business get a Nessus code. You can contact local SBA. They will help you with that process. And that helps you in bidding and winning projects for grants and funds. And the SAMS number, et cetera. There are organizations that can and will help you, and we'll help point anyone with that as well. But that's that, Lloyd, but I don't know if you have Q&A, or I probably took all the time.
Well, yes, but I'm going to again stop recording so we can capture this part of it, John. So give me just 1 second here.
1001.
Just hold on 1 second, please. I'm going to make a transition over to our next phase, but I'm going to put this slide there, stop recording, and then start recording again. Okay.
Yes, so that was an excellent presentation. It's very comprehensive, and so that was
Thank you.
such a great thing that we actually have for, I think, our first time actually have a Native American on our calls, making actually a presentation, except for the very first event that we had. We called it our Sunlight Spectacle 2021 event, and that was actually the very first that launched this whole series, where we had a few guests on that call. But now I think at this point is a good transition for us to engage with Native communities in North America, as well as, of course, the Indigenous communities that we have on our calls all the time from Africa. So we are now in this period, and I'm just looking at the clock, and I think you have 20 minutes. So we will go ahead until you have that hard stop with answering some questions from the people who are on the call. So I'm seeing Prophet Cox. Did you want to ask some questions or make some comments?
Both. I wanted to, just a quick question, John, again, excellent as always. I had a request of you and also an FYI. The request is that you shared on another forum I was on about some really good news about healing, a step that was taken by with Native American and African people that came in here enslaved. So that's the request. If you share that quickly, I know that's a very short piece. But the other thing is that I don't know if you were aware that, well, you know, aware of the 400 Commission, but the recent mini grants we gave out, they were small, but I didn't get anything that, I don't think you were aware that, like, one of our part of it was to go based on the public law. So I put that in the chat. Number 6 says that you can get funding through that. Not now because the date is past, but it says to help ensure that the observances of the commemoration are inclusive and appropriately recognize the experiences and heritage of all individuals present at the arrival of Africans in the United States. So it could potentially but they were small, you know, it wasn't like a lot. It was 2,500 to 5,000, but I was hoping that some of these smaller issues across the country or whoever was the part of, so there are different, but anyway, you can take a look at it and see if it comes back around tomorrow next year. But then also the 400 Commission has another grant that that goes through the National Underground Railroad, and because African people were a part of the journey with the Native Americans on the Trail of Tears. Just take a look at it. That's just an FYI. But can you share quickly, because that was something sort of a model for what could happen, maybe perhaps around the world. But anyway, that was my request.
And
Thank
Julia,
you. I
sorry.
love your picture, by the way. Yeah.
And
So please send me an email on that, and I'll take Julie's question and answer her question. Or how do you want me to do that?
Yeah, we can
Well,
go ahead.
you would
Julia.
share. Okay, so can he share the piece about the Native American bond with the African Americans and how they started healing already?
well, I'd like for Juliet, if she could, to put her question to him. Then he can answer both at once, if that's okay with you, please.
Go ahead.
Juliet, what's your question?
Okay, thank you. At evening this side, good evening and good morning that side. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. It's quite a breath of fresh air. Yes, you know, and what's my name is Juliet Miabo. I sit in South Africa. I'm originally from Soweto, and I work with various communities in the different townships of South Africa. And I'm the head of the Soweto CSI Council. So my question is, I'm going to pose it as an Indigenous person of South Africa, specifically because my family comes from Botswana. So Botswana are part of the Indigenous people of South Africa. So, but obviously a lot has happened. We all know what has happened, how as African people in South Africa, the issues that you touched on about how we've the language being taken away, the culture, etc., etc. I see Prince Andrew has something to say.
No, I don't. I'm just waiting for you to get to your question. Go right ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, no, okay, let me make it a statement and then a quick question. So there's a group, there's what we find that the indigenous communities, all the issues of alcohol abuse, all the issues that you highlighted there, they're still quite pertinent in those communities where we have what you still call indigenous communities. We have what you call the Kru and the Kwe. I don't know if you know anything about them. And though most of them, okay, they do still speak their language, which is Kru and Kwe. But communities like those, as much as there's a bit of development that happens around them, we find that it's very difficult to take them, to help them see beyond, I'll use the word, yeah, the camps that they've been put in, because they were put in camps so that other things must happen. So I don't know what, you've got excellent programs, and I wonder if you do have those communities where, though there is a bit of development, they choose to stay in those camps and not be part of whatever progress or opportunities that may come up. Yes, and I think that would be my main question to say. And also, for me, it's very challenging. That's why when we were celebrating Freedom Day yesterday in South Africa, it becomes very hard because it's freedom, it's political freedom, but as a people, we are still unpacking and allowing ourselves to redefine ourselves. So do you also find that, which is my second question, that it's an ongoing process to redefine yourself while the whole system is still trying to define you, even if they're using economics, because at times the economics, they start defining people and people start giving up their culture in order to make money. So though there's freedom, but there's not always that total freedom, because you have to define your freedom in the context of a system that is quite foreign. So I know what I'm saying, it's more like statements and questions, but I think I'm hoping you've picked those things up. Thank you again. This has been great. Thank you.
All right, John. So you got 1 and 2 to answer. So ball's back in your court, John.
Thank you. And I'm glad because their questions are kind of similar. So my response is that it is ongoing. It's generational trauma. The reservations in the United States were prisoners of war camps, and that's what they call now a reservation, but they were put there and controlled. And sadly, the mentality has become people wait for the handout. They wait for the gate doors to open from the fort, so to speak, and out comes food and blankets. Well, just so everyone knows, we were the first ones in the United States to be genocide with chemical warfare. A lot of my nation was wiped out from blankets with smallpox and other things that were given to them. And they're thinking, oh, good, this will keep us warm. No, it killed us. And similarly, picture this. When they took all of our weaponry away in farming, and we were given rifles with no firing pin. So how is a Native American who at that time, and to make a firing pin, know how to insert it so that that gun can be used? So my ancestors and other nations used to use it like a club, and they'd hit the animal over the head or etc. Because other than that, the gun was useless, the rifle. So things like that took place, and that is part of what we call generational trauma. And many of our nations, elders don't talk about it. Just like right now, you have a lot of people in Ukraine, sadly, that are Holocaust victims. Yesterday being recognition of the Ukrainian Holocaust Day from past, and they have generational trauma. Our African American slavery people in and out of, again, I'm speaking pretty wide here because I'm not African American. I just love and am with many of them all the time, my whole life, go through similarly. Part of that difference that Juliet spoke to and Ms. Cox is that the healing process has to be a beginning point of cultural and foods, medicine, health, all those things, and with a holistic approach. And Native American people were not allowed to have their own farming in the prisoner of war camps. They were told, no, we'll take care of you. So many of them stopped becoming self-sufficient. And from what I've seen, that hasn't been always the case from African American people. Africa still, they would say, well, if we don't get fed right now, we still need to grow something we can eat. So they still do something opposed to, so to speak, sitting by the gate doors and waiting for them to open. So what has started is that right now, the healing process of films and recognition, one of them being one of our board of advisors, former member who's still engaged, is Jim Warren. He made a movie that you can purchase on Amazon, I believe. It's called Seventh Generation, and he's been going all over the world sharing that. But it talks about the Indian schools where many of our people were, well, all of them were abused in some way there, but many were murdered and killed. And we still are addressing our missing, murdered Indigenous women and children and men issues, as well as elders. And right now, the Cherokee Nation has gone as far, and there's a great video of it, where Chief Hodgkins, principal chief of the Cherokee Nation in Oklahoma, they redid their constitution, which any tribe has to do, that they're overseen by the BI by an approved constitution. And that constitution was updated as a reminder. It didn't change the wording, just updated, more firm. And Debbie Helen, the Secretary of Interior, signed off on approval of it. So, and that is that there are no longer Freeman Cherokees. If they're able to quantifiably verify their bloodline and landline and et cetera, then they're Cherokee. Take away the word Freeman, because that relates back to slavery and bad things. Similarly, as I mentioned earlier, the Navajo Nation, a lot of people, when I meet someone from that nation, I normally say, I'm honored to meet you from the Dene Nation. And they smile typically and say, thank you. Because Navajo, and it has different meanings, but the wide one that I was told means dirty dog. Do you want to be called dirty dog? No. But now when we meet people, we say that, or even some people, Native America. We were here before America, so you can get into all that, or just always stay proactive in the healing side of love and peace and harmony, and pray for those that don't understand, and use each of those times as an educational moment, how people understand. And that's why typically in our meetings and all meetings, most Native people will use what's called the talking stick. And the person with the talking stick is the only one allowed to speak. Everyone else is supposed to be using both their ears to listen twice as hard as they talk. And then they may openly look at it and say, you know what, I never looked at it from that angle. okay, I could see your point. And people then try and work through it than being bulldozed. Now, one of the recognized ways is Robert's Rules of Order, right? So a lot of the meetings are Robert's Rules. So I hope, Ms. Cox, that answers your question. The Freeman. So just to be clear for everyone with the Freeman, those were when the tribal nations went through the Death March, Trail of Tears, etc., from other areas. So as an example, the Delaware Nation up in New York area was marched all the way down to Oklahoma, and now is in there's a couple Delaware bands, but there's one that I showed you the picture of. That Delaware Nation is about 15 minutes from the Caddo Nation in Binger, Oklahoma. It's a very rural area, and growth and development in this south area of Oklahoma is what we're working to do. I'm also the president of Southwest Native American Indian Chamber of Commerce, and that's part of my goal is to help grow it. So the Freemen, when they were brought, they were family with many of the tribes, and some not in agreement. Some of the tribes did use them as slaves. Yet when they came into Oklahoma, Texas area, they were under a legal thing called the Freemans, and the Freeman Law, Freeman Acts, which I don't know all the exact details of that name because I've in my mind always blanked it out. But that's where the generational trauma and our people that are saying, oh, I'm a Freeman. That means that they were a mixed blood of some African-American native blood, which obviously happened because many were mixed blood. Just as many of you may not be aware, a lot of the Delaware, as an example, and others were mixed with Asian descent, especially Korean. So there were a huge amount of Asian and Native American people that have mixed. And now, sadly, in some of the tribes, there's corruption going on where they are disenrolling because based on government guidelines for per caps, if they can better control who are the decision makers, which are tribal members, then some of that happens. So all these things we are working through, but it all starts with the holistic approach with family and coaching and training. And with that is finances, people understanding modern tools and better understanding. So now they're self-sustainable. And I hope that answers those questions. Andrew?
Thank you, John. No, I just want to say thank you because I want to highlight the fact that Africans were, well, all of it had to do with the, I won't call it colonization, but that many tribes were denied things. And you know the history better than I do, unless they became so-called civilized tribes. But a part of that is that they were also encouraged to have African slaves. So the battle now, and so I'm only bringing this up with John because he's been a part of the healing process and he does a lot of advocacy in the community, as well as I think in Washington, that the African people have not been able to benefit from the finances that go to reservations because they were excluded as full-blown. Well, you know more about it, John, but thank you for sharing that little bit. I just wanted to make it clear. And thank you for the work that you do, by the way.
Thank you. I'll add to that real brief. Sorry, Lloyd. Is that the Muskogee Creek Nation, as an example, is right next to the Cherokee Nation. So is the Osage. And they do not recognize African-American people as part of mixed blood with their tribes. And part of the funding process that Biden and Obama were supposed to have done, as well as Trump way back when, and before Trump with Bush, these funds are available. They could have cut it. But you've heard them say now, Biden, get us in office and we'll start helping indigenous people, African American, et cetera, and release these funds. Well, we're still waiting for a lot of that. But along with that, the Muskogee Creek, as an example, Mohammed Rabala, the mayor of Fort Coffee, Oklahoma, is also should be recognized, in my opinion, as Muskogee Creek. So when I went up to visit him and see the lands, because part of what we're working towards is Fort Coffee and Black Wall Street to re-engage and enhance those areas. So in that, he goes, you need to come to the Chickasha Museum. It's right here. I'm like, sure, let's go. So being that I was raised in California and I did do college out here, we went. Well, Sorrel is Caddo Mounds. They, again, allowed the Muskogee Creek on our lands, but it's stated in all the documentation of the plaques out front, which anyone can look up, cattle lands, cattle museum, cattle relationship. And we did not, and many of the tribes did not join the Confederacy and did not believe in slavery of another person. So I just want to know you to all know that battle is still going on, and Biden has even mentioned that if tribes do not recognize the mixed bloods of any race, if they can prove their lineage, then they do not qualify for these set-aside funds in the trillions that are now becoming available. I have to ask real quick though, sorry. Accent Brown Bear Child, is that a Native American person that has joined us, or First Nations? I've seen your name up here, I'm just curious.
Hi, yeah, actually I was given my Indian name.
You have to speak up. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Much better. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, actually I've been working with Stephanie. I've been doing a lot of work with my Indigenous sisters in Northern Canada, and we've been putting together community. I was introduced to Stephanie a few months back, and we are working at collaborating our ideas. I am looked upon as a fair skin and welcomed into the matriarchal circles because of all the work that I do. We've brought a new medical device into Canada, and specifically brought it into the nations to help with diabetes. It's called Beamer, and it improves systemic blood circulation. So that was the beginning of our getting together. The ladies, all of my tribal sisters, we're putting together an Indigenous knowledge sanctuary along with our communities, and basically turning our systems upside down with regards to education, taking the kids out of the classroom and teaching them the ways of Mother Earth. And so, yeah, with that, again, I'm working with Stephanie and now meeting this whole group. I'm excited to work together because we have a lot on the go. I also have a brother over in Akwesasne. He's a Mohawk Indian, and we're wanting to implement 1,000 holistic centers on Turtle Island. So I look forward to working with you, John. Thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to everybody working with us. We all need to jump in together. So Andrew, back to you. I know Julia has her hand up, but time-wise, you and Laura.
How much time do you have before the hard stop, John?
Like a few minutes.
I think so, yeah. So we're coming, I think, near the end myself as well. I have to get off the call probably in about 5 minutes or so as well.
I'll still be here, so we'll still be here for those that can still be here and choose to. So, John, any last thoughts before you wrap it up?
I feel bad if Juliet's not able to.
Yeah, Juliet has her hand up.
I can see. Okay, Juliet, please go right ahead.
Okay, yes, thank you. I'll be quick. I just wanted to highlight a special link to what Prophet Cox said, and also the difference in terms of South Africa, because with the apartheid system, the whole idea was to take away the land. So that's why the issue of the land is so important. So they took away the land and put people in camps, or that we call townships now. What it then did, that it actually forced the Africans in South Africa to be the people, I don't know, that's that word that you say, where you wait at the gate and wait, because the whole idea was that, no, we put you in camps and we will take care of you. So, so that mindset, that's why there's a whole generational trauma, because that mindset where people were used to the apartheid government coming in, a bit of bread here, a bit of that, caused a lot of problems because, okay, firstly, the land is still not there, but also the mentality of waiting for government to do something has actually impacted even the current generations. So even if it needs to be changed, people want to do their own things, farm their own land, do agriculture. There's still no land. So though there is, as I say, though there is freedom, but there are no resources. So South Africa is in a very strange situation compared to a lot of African countries. And what it then means when people come from other African countries, they come and say, oh, South Africans are lazy. It's like, okay, we give us something to work on. You know, I'm talking generally. So it's, I think as South Africans would identify more with what has happened with the indigenous people, various in America and other parts, in New Zealand and in Australia. We also identify a lot with what happened in those countries. But also we're still dealing with the issue of the mixed bloods that we're given a special race with special privileges. So it's I'm glad we touched on the issue of generational trauma, and it needs to be continuous generational healing as a process. And this is it's very good. I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. So my last closing thought you asked, Andrew, is we all, and I'm grateful for this meeting of like-minded people. Lloyd, so again, thank you for your persistence, and Andrew, and giving me the blessing to be able to speak and share. But we all need to work together. None of us can do this alone. And it needs to be a holistic healing of mind, body, and spirit, as we talk about all the time. And by the way, my Indian name that was given to me when I was a young child is Spirit. And I had no idea, but they told me I would be working and reaching out to thousands and touching and helping to change the lives of, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, potentially millions. Now, I've already done some of that, thank God. And part of that is the book I wrote, The Millionaire Loan Officer, and my efficacy of showing there are better ways with the proper foundation, like a strong house, right? What do you have to start with? A strong foundation. And that's what all of us here on this call, I'm hearing and echoing and feeling, we all need to continue to work. As a last thought, sorry to add a little sad point here, but Hitler read the actual stories that took place at the genocide of Native American people through the death marches or longest walks, etc., and the blankets, etc. So that, and including mutilation and tests of other peoples, because that was all done to our Native American, African American brothers and sisters, Asian, so forth, here in the United States. And that was his go-to book. And like that, post-traumatic stress, generational trauma is partly what all of our elders and others are going through. So I encourage us all to work through that. And like both sides of two sides, if you will, we need to bless and protect our elders and we need to bless and protect and strengthen our youth and help those two come together. And even if it means we text or call occasionally our elders just to say hi and see how you're doing, we need to keep the spirit strong. Creator knows.
Before you go, John, I do want to let you know, I'll be connecting with Erwin Russell on the call with us now. His focus is on poverty alleviation. Primarily, he's been focused on Africa, but I want to encourage my corporation to connect the dots between his institute and your organization so we can have some outcomes today that we can actually quantify and move forward. I'll connect you afterwards.
Thank you. And I believe we have been speaking through Baba, and but like you, I talked to so many, so I'll have to see my records. But thank you, everybody. I do have to go. My information is in the chat, and please feel free. Please keep me and our people in your works, our team, and we need ongoing support. And my trip up to Alaska, that I don't run into a polar bear. All right.
Thank you very much, John.
He doesn't run into you.
What?
Or the polar bear doesn't run into you.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, John. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just
Thank you, John.
saving my chat notes. Thank you, everyone. God bless. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I'm going to stop recording and start recording again. Okay, we're into our final networking session. So the floor is open, and thank you so much for introducing yourself. And the floor is open now for comments, questions. Lloyd, you may have to go, but
Yeah.
I'll be here until you get ready. Everyone gets ready to go home.
Yep. So I actually do need to get going. My wife gets off work early today. So thank you all for coming in for this one. This was a fantastic session today. Again, we are building our network, and we are building across the Atlantic through our crossroads is now coming into fruition. That first tree that was planted way back in 2020 in St. Jamestown and in Bermuda and in the Democratic Republic of Congo, we are now connecting those lines. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you for everybody in the network.
Yes, thank you.
We love you, Lloyd.
Thank you so much.
Okay, family, we can wrap it up, or we can keep going. Ball's in your court. We can make the decision now.
I still have a bit of energy.
I
do have something to say. And
however, Stephanie, Thomas Hobson had his hand raised. So first Thomas and then you. Hey, Tom, ball's in your court.
Thank you. This has been very enlightening, and our hearts have been kind of how to help the Native American people, and partly because we have, my wife and I are Mi'kmaq background, and we see kind of both sides because we have the heritage of both the English and Scottish, etc. We used to have a bakery on Manitoulin Island where we used to supply bread to the native people door to door, and that was a fun time at the time there. But what I'm bringing to the table today is the power for the change, I believe, is in the people. The problem has been with the handout, looking, like being like this, instead of realizing that the power is within you to make the change. You have all the Native people have something wonderful to contribute to society and to themselves. They just have to discover it and bring it forth. It's kind of like you give and you receive, you bless and you're blessed, you forgive and you're forgiven. And these are the things that, if we're nurtured, they will bring forth fruit. And the idea is really overcoming slavery. And it begins in the heart and mind, realizing that you are free already. So you recognize within yourself that, in a sense, you've been lied to, discouraged from being really who you are. And you have to search deep to know that. And that's the spiritual walk as well. Presently or lately, I've been working with a group of people who have technologies to help clean up the environment, basically take garbage dumps and make them into reproductive materials, and provide solar power, wind power, various power systems. And all of these things can change people's lives so that they can make the decisions on where they want to go and what they want to do and what they want to be. And I kind of skipped ahead a little bit, but the real value in a person is the person. And if, for instance, you can have all the land in the world, you can have all the gold in the world, you can have all the resources in the world, but if you don't have any people, what value do they have? So I just like to bring that forth, that's important for the Native community to realize that they are needed in this world.
Well, please do what we call a Hollywood do-over and introduce yourself and where you're from at the beginning. And if you have an organization, the organization, and if it has a website, etc., and make sure it's in the chat. One more time.
Okay. Yeah, my name's Thomas Hobson, and I live in Medicine Hat, Alberta. And well, I'm 75 years of age, and we're working. I was introduced to this particular link here from Brown Bear Child, whom I've had contacts with for a while. Working on other things for planning for greenhouse type operations, planning for homegrown operations where people can actually simply grow their own vegetables right in their own house. And I think that's, my wife has been doing this, and this is what can build personal responsibility and personal awareness of their abilities, where people get a sense of contact if they don't have land. Like, you can say, oh, I don't have land. Well, a lot of the white people don't have land either. They just have a little wee spot, to live on. And yet they could grow in their own house the food they need, lettuces and tomatoes and different things of that nature. So we have to start with what we have and what we can do, not what we can't do. And then when that starts to grow, I believe the funding will come. It's like life nurtures life. Energy, it's getting the energy flowing in the right direction. So if you get the energy flowing in the right direction, then everything starts to support itself. More and more will come in because people want to support life. Okay, more and more people will support it, and it'll just flow. We've gone through all the problems in this world. I think we've seen it all, and most people are fed up with the way the world has been run, and we need to change it. And it starts with us. It starts with each individual. Okay.
Understood. Well, thank you so very much. Make sure you have your contact information in the chat. Stephanie, over to you, and then Juliet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stephanie Schubuehler, and I'm based in Toronto, Canada right now. the talk
We have a
was
lot of
very, very.
we have echo, so I'm not sure, Stephanie, if you're there twice. But if you're not speaking, please mute yourself.
Yeah, I'm not sure why there's feedback. Okay, let's give it a try again. Okay, I'm Stephanie Schuler. I'm based in Toronto, Canada, and I am a founder of Global Unity Network, and also the Unity Learning Network, and also founder and director of the Maui Aloha Project, which is an eco-village initiative. And the basis for all my involvement is really not only climate action, not only climate action for Mother Earth, but climate action between peoples, between groups, and specifically regarding education and learning. And I'm really glad to hear that, and I know that it's been necessary to talk about the holistic well-being. Holistic well-being is the crux of everything I'm doing as I'm finishing my doctorate at the University of Toronto. It's about social emotional well-being and labeling. And I was really grateful that John spoke about, unfortunately, the high rates of youth suicide, depression, and anxiety, and all of that of course lead to suicide, and also trauma, ancestral traumas. And I come from the opinion that we've got to try Thomas, you just talked about all the systems being disrupted right now, and this is a time for sure of transformation. With COVID happening right now, we saw that the school systems, the learning systems instantly changed. So we have an opportunity also with the digital age, and plus, I believe in balance, but we must do anything. I speak from an education background. I speak from a holistic learning background and well-being background. We must do anything that we can to try to reduce the numbers of anxiety, depression, and youth suicide, and it goes on into adult suicide as well. Whatever needs to be done, and we see the answers right now. I know Maui Aloha Project, and I know our learning network. We're putting it all together, all of the indigenous wisdoms, all of the new sustainable and regenerative energies that can sustain us. And also so many of the social, cultural, art, sports, we've been discussing it. These are some of the ways that through play, through learning, we're going to bridge these intolerances and these hatreds. One of you said at the beginning, that we're looking looking backwards to all of our histories, which have so much hatred, so much slavery, so much destruction, and so much division. And I think, we're very fortunate at this time right now, because we can look towards the future. We're in a crisis time for humanity and a crisis time for the planet. And all of us together, with all of the medicines and the knowledges, I can hear the conversations in education changing. I can hear people caring more and more about social, emotional, and holistic well-being. It wasn't always part of the conversations. So hopefully we've hit rock bottom, and we're going to start to move into the light together and in a unified way as one world. Hopefully. So I just wanted to say that I hear the conversations changing. I hear people in education caring about the state of the children, and that's been exacerbated from COVID for sure worldwide. So that's my 2 cents from the learning and education side. Thank you.
No, thank you. All right, we have Juliet and Prophet Cox.
I also agree with Stephanie there. But what's interesting is how across the world, doesn't matter where we sit, the healing process needs to happen. And it's also a matter of looking at issues of collaboration, where at times we don't have to reinvent the wheel, because when you look at what John and people like Prophet Cox have been working on, it's also just a matter of saying, how do we learn from those and start using them, because healing is healing. It's like medicine. The soul needs healing. So it's not like you have to come up with a new formula. So whatever has worked elsewhere, it's good to look at collaboration. I know that possibly Prophet Cox will look at expanding on the work that we'll be doing with her, and also to include people like John. So, but I am actually grateful that I think as a world across the continent, we're able to talk about this and do the work together, because when you know that you're not the only one that has to go through all that, it actually even makes it even better, and here I'm actually talking on behalf of communities, and some of which don't even know that they need to go through healing. All we see is the issues that Stephen is talking about: suicide, men and teenagers killing themselves. But the work still has to happen, and I'm very grateful.
Over to you, Prophet Cox.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm excited about, of course, all that John shared, as well as what everyone else has said, Juliet and Stephanie and Thomas. I guess I just put out a challenge, sort of, is that because there are a lot of open hearts these days to do some healing. I mean, I think as a whole, humankind is just tired of what's going on. But I want to remind you of Gandhi in the movie anyway. There was a man who came to Gandhi because he wanted to confess his sins and be forgiven. And he had killed the father of a young man and left the young man's son without a father because he was very angry and things had happened. So he went to Gandhi for forgiveness. And so Gandhi said the way that your way out of hell, or your way of forgiveness, is to raise one was a Hindu, the other was a Muslim. He said, raise the son of the man. That's your way out. But it wasn't to raise him under his tradition. He had to raise them under the opposite tradition. So say he was a Muslim that killed a Hindu, he had to raise the child as a Hindu. If he was a Hindu as a Muslim, so he couldn't take the child and raise it in his tradition, even though he thought his tradition was best. So I'm saying that to say what John said that happened with the Native Americans happened with African people in America. I believe it happened around the world, is that all the people of African descent, indigenous people, were raised, were relegated to the state of infancy with no name, no food, no culture, no nothing, and then indoctrinated with the culture of others. So I'm saying if we're going to heal, and I'm saying this because that's what we do in the healing circles that we do now. I did 3 or 4 last week. It's that we don't go to bash people, the colonizer. We go to become again, finding our own human agency and our own traditions. That means that we can look at a God that doesn't look like our oppressor. We can speak words from our own, even if it's one word, even if it's just sawubona, whatever the word is, we start saying words that are true to our language. We start changing our names back. We start taking our food back. We stop eating garbage that was given to us. And so I'm saying, for those with the open hearts, be willing to allow people, space for people to actually go back. It's called Sankofa, as from Ghana, a Dinka symbol. It means go back and fetch it if you have forgotten. So it was the system of racism and oppression was a complete system. And it was designed, if you were the creator of it, which none of us were, but if you were, you wanted it to work. So if you wanted to work, you had to take everything, strip everything down. So I agree with Thomas in that what we need is within us, but the help that people are needing is to be able to know, because we were taught we have no value. So the people with the value were the ones who gave us new food that didn't work in our digestive systems. They gave us new names that were not part of our ancestors. They gave us names of their ancestors. So we need to go back and get that which gave us strength, that which allowed us to build pyramids. They said that the Sphinx, they dated it going back about 70,000 years because there are watermarks on it. So at one point there was water in the desert. So we know that we have some greatness, but how do we get it back? We don't get it back by clinging on to the history of those who oppressed us. So it's not a bashing of anybody else. It's just, we're calling it to remember. We remember, we reconnect, not to bash other folks. And so it's like everybody get okay with it. You know, I have done a lot of work around 12 steps. So I've gone to conferences in England and all that with the Narcotics Anonymous. But if you're alcoholic, they don't really want you to come in there talking about I'm a crack addict. You know, they don't want you talking about I'm a heroin addict. They want you to talk about alcoholism. So a lot of our circles that we do are specific. We've done specifically safe, healthy spaces for Black people. We've also, because we have been reached out, the organization that I a part of, we were reached out to by people who were European American. Well, what about us? Okay, well, we had white only spaces. We were the facilitators because we brought knowledge they hadn't thought about. And then we encouraged them to now do some circles for yourself because you do have healing. But there are ways for us to work together, but we have to reconnect with what really was prior to, not just give things that are present now and say move on. So that's my take on it. Let's allow people space to go back and really get, you know, what we once had, which was kingdoms that didn't have some of the things we face now. And I think that's with John as well, because when they talk about their culture, they were forced into being slave owners because they were English. If they could speak English and if they were Christian, they were considered civilized. And if they were civilized, then they could have slaves, which is kind of scary that you had to be Christian to be a slaveholder. But all the other groups, they didn't have to do that. So I see Andrew, when he turns his camera on, I get a little concerned. But that's all I have to say about that, like we said. And who was the guy that said, that's all I have to say about that. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm going to briefly share my screen. Earlier today, we had in attendance Lady Alicia Hamilton. She was multitasking. And just to let you know, Lady Alicia Hamilton is actually our global media coordinator for all of our works. And when earlier you heard Lloyd mention that what we're doing now will actually be packaged and rebroadcast on the Revelation Network. It's Lady Alicia Hamilton who is the founder of that. Also, the Universal Citizens Media Network, and also she provided the AHIABGA-TV with a channel on her network. So we will have a place for what we're doing now to reach a wider audience than just the social media audience. But she wrote an article back in, I think it was 2015, maybe 2016. It says July 7th, 2016, called Mental Incarceration, the Silent Oppressor. And she did this in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals. They were asking for articles and submissions. And her take on this was that we, all of us worldwide, have to make the step of breaking away from the mental incarceration that we find ourselves involved with that can be more crippling than externally applied incarceration. So I say that to say that that's part of the role and effort here. I put the link in the chat for you to review it. But the most dangerous thing that, unfortunately, we still have to deal with, in my opinion here, are the mindset of the, quote, oppressors, the ones who are facing what they call white fragility, but whose hand is on the nuclear button. And so it's critically important that as we work to heal ourselves, that, as you say, Prophet Cox, we must provide a healing space for those outside of our normal circles to be able to expand the healing process to go further. 2 years ago, there was a study that said in the United States, 75% of the Anglo-Americans had no contact with people of African descent or Latino descent. And so it's difficult for them to even comprehend what it is to be part of our community. I don't know what the solution is to that, but we have to identify those people that were, particularly the millennials, that are having the major change on the world right now that opens up pathways for the future. So again, I encourage each of you to think about some young person or some person younger than we are to be amongst our collaboration so we can have intergenerational conversations. Because again, our children will as we are here, look at this that we have right here, right? And so this is what we have to show our children and then involve them in so the healing process can begin from within. So I just wanted to express that and thank all of you for your participation and turn the floor back over before we close because I'm getting incoming calls. So the floor is open for closing thoughts.
Just that we are doing the trainings that I do around healing. I'm now doing train the trainer. We train adults, yes, but then those adults also are working with young people so that they can also be trained and go and work with other young people. So there are some of that work is going on.
Yeah, also on our part, in everything that I do, I involve young people and children, especially children, because from as early age as possible, and young people. And I like what Thomas also said, that it's always important to remember that people, we all have the power to make the change, to heal, you know, and that's one of the things that I try and do on my project. That's why I like the whole way of empowerment, because it's self-empowerment in order to help others. And that's what Ubuntu is, where you empower yourself in order to empower others. So yeah, we'll keep doing the work. And yeah, culturally and contextually, it makes sense. And yeah, and I agree with you. We need to get more and more young people involved on these calls. The only limitation in here in our country, Prince Andrew, is the whole issue of Wi-Fi and data. So at times they log in, data and Wi-Fi is quite expensive. So that's the only challenge for now. Thank you again. Thank you for the session and the networking part.
It would probably be good to get us something where a young person is trained and then they lead one of these, you know, give them the tools they need to lead one of these sessions, you know, one of these, I don't know what you call these, network, something.
They're called nodes. Yes.
Yes, they use nodes and then give them the tools though, because I see a lot of cry for the youth to lead, but I also know, just because I have grandchildren and children, that they need to be guided. That's how we pass it on generation to generation. They don't kind of come here knowing, they tend to be a product of us. And so if we're a banana, they're a banana. And so we have to help them to be able to deal with some things and have the knowledge to go forth. They do need us, but they have their own creativity and energy, thank God.
Okay, we're moving to close. Any last thoughts? Make sure you have your contact information in the chat so we can follow up with you. When I'm able, I send out a chat to those people that are either on their phones, but if I have your contact information in the chat, I'll send it out to you as well. All right, all quiet.
All right, okay, all good.
Heinrich, you've been very quiet all this time. Ayodele, you've been quiet. Any closing thoughts?
Oh, I think that, you know, listen and learn. That is the topic for tonight. I think I've learned a lot, and I've got a lot to reflect on, and I'm already reflecting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
So-
Awu, before you go, Juliet, people that haven't spoken, Awu, you're there? Awu Ifafunki, if you're there and would like to unmute yourself, now's that time. And if not, Ayodele? Okay. All right, Juliet, balls in your
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
yes,
you.
Wait. Well, come on
Yes.
with it. Speak up. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. Good evening from Uganda. We are learning centers and different partners, and most of the things that we have been listening to is there things that are really exposing or opening our eyes to some of the things which has happening many years back. I wish, especially that put many people, wish a lot of people are ignorant of them. But we welcome every presentation, every idea that can bring more liberations to the people of Black race, because the people of Black race, we have suffered a lot of setback because of slave trade and colonization. So we will appreciate, especially more of our exposure, more of revelations, and more of liberations. And I want tell you that currently hope of the agriculture, in time of mining, in time of a lot of even including human resources. So thank you. We believe that the next Indigenous Summit, we're going to encourage more of our members, especially the UnityNet African diaspora. Some of them are not on board. We're going to see how we can motivate them and mobilize them to attend the next IGU Summit. I want to appreciate you, Prince Andrew Jr., for the great job you are doing. Please keep it up, and African is proud of you, and we are proud of what you are doing, and we are fully in support of what you are doing. And thank you, Mr. Lloyd. I want to tell you that I don't know what to say, especially to appreciate you, but we are really in good relationship and in support of what you are doing, especially for supporting Africa and also for connecting us to the remaining part of the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bishop. Okay, Awo, your last chance. Awo, I see you there, but can you unmute yourself, and would you like to? If not, we're going to go out with a prayer from Prophet Cox.
Oshunye.
Oh,
Yes, Juliet.
yes, no, I just wanted to, before we pray, just to concur with my fellow South African, Hendrik, and just say that, you know, a session like today, it's actually giving us an opportunity to reflect. I mean, we are from different parts of the world as South Africans, but I think equally it's impacted both of us, and I think has given both, yeah, as he says, himself and myself, I'm sure, and other people an opportunity to reflect. And it's always good to go back inside and reflect and think again. I'm echoing what Ayodele said. Yeah, and also I appreciate Ayodele for always being here and representing the Africa UnityNet and diaspora for his commitment.
Well, thank you so much. In the chat, I did put in links to my own heritage. I have my great grandmother was a Creek Indian, and also I'm from Georgia, so there's Gullah Geechee in me as well from Sierra Leone. So I am in fact a global citizen, but today is a true reflection of the Indigenous Global Unity Network, because as John mentioned, there are 500 recognized tribes, but there are 3,000 unrecognized tribes. But in Africa, there are at least 3,000 tribes, and at least that number in Asia. So technically, we're intending to provide a platform for all of us to come together to move forward in Ubuntu, because I am only who I am because of who you are to yourself and we are to each other. So on that note,
Amen.
I'm going to wrap it up for today. Thank everyone for being here, and we'll love you. Hopefully we'll see you next week, or if not,
Before there's a prayer.
we'll see you again. Bye-bye.